Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go over my pitching tips for beginner players in MLB the Show 21. Now obviously the show has been out for a few months now. Haven't released it, just wanted to get a better feel for the game, but I've come up with some things that'll really help you guys out, especially the beginner players this year. If this is your first year of MLB the Show 21, this is the video for you to help improve yourself on the mound. All right, guys, so today we're going to talk about, strategy, the attributes that matter, and the information that is available to you at every single at-bat about your opponent that's going to help you out when it comes to pitching. Guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for daily MLB content. All right, let's get into the video. All right, so first, guys, I just want to talk quickly about pitching attributes that you want to look for and what they mean. I talk about this in my attributes video, but just want to give you guys a refresher. This is my main squad that I'm using in ranked seasons, and we picked up the Cliff Lee from Team Affinity, and it's been absolutely phenomenal for me. I want to talk quickly about the attributes and, again, how they play into this. So stamina, that one's pretty easy. It's just how long they can hold their energy when you're pitching. It's going to matter a lot more for starting pitchers if you're playing ranked seasons. A little bit, obviously, a lot less if you're playing events and whatnot. So stamina just going to improve how long they can stay in the game. Hits per 9 will help shrink the inner PCI size, so that inner circle, so that the hard contact that they make, it's just a little bit more difficult to do. The K per 9 will bring down that outer PCI, meaning that it's a lot more difficult to foul balls off. The walks per 9, that is going to allow you to easily use whatever pitching mechanic that you use. So if you use pure analog or if you use pinpoint, the higher the walks per 9, the easier it is to get 100% accuracy with that. On the other side, we've got control. That one's pretty self-explanatory. It's how well they control their pitches. Velocity, again, how fast and how hard they throw. And then the breaks on their pitches. Up at the top, the things you want to pay attention to in terms of just their pitch mix. All right, sinker, cutter, change, knuckle, and four-seamer on Cliff Lee. The best pitches in this game, in my opinion, the sinker and cutter are phenomenal because they come in hard and fast, and they have late movement. And then any sort of changeup is going to be key, as well as a slider. Obviously, that one's always going to be really good against opposing sides of the batter. So if you're a lefty facing a left-handed batter, slider is obviously really effective at getting those guys out and to swing at pitches out of the zone. When you take a look at velocity, that's all pitch break. That's going to, again, determine how much the ball will actually break. And then velocity is pretty important as well. You want to find a nice pitch mix. So you see that knuckle curve at 74. Regardless of the pitch, a 74 mile an hour up to 92 on the sinker. That's a huge difference, almost 20 miles per hour. That means they have to be sitting for that pitch specifically. So that's going to come into some of the strategy we're going to talk about in just a little bit. One thing I will mention, guys, is that pinpoint is the best pitching method. If you are able to put the time into it and get really effective with it, it is the best for locating your pitches. In all honesty, I just didn't really like having to play with it to get used to it. I love pure analog still, and that's why I still use it. Either if you're not using pinpoint, I'd recommend using pure analog, but it's totally up to you. If you can master pinpoint, that will give you a slight advantage, but again, I'm just going to show you pure analog. It's not necessary to master pinpoint to be really good at pitching in this game. All right, so now let's get into the tactics you want to use, especially early on against an opponent. All right, so like I said, there's a lot of information here that you can get just before you even throw a ball. So if you want to pause really quick, again, a lot of your opponents will do it to check out what you actually have as a pitch mix and whatnot. But if you look at your average, the batting average of your opponent, that's going to give you a really big indication of whether they can even use the player that you're facing. So if it's extremely low, under 200, for example, you're either free swingers or really don't like the swing, and they're just having to have this player in their lineup. But more importantly, when it comes to leadoff hitters, especially with the Byron Buxton card, because you're going to see a lot of that among the top of the lineup, you'll see that he's only got 1 home run and 67 hits. Now, what does that mean? It means that he bunts to get on base an awful lot. So you want to make sure that your defense is switched to bunt for this example, and that's the best way that you can start off against someone that plays like this. All right, so early on in a game against an opponent that doesn't have a high batting average with their leadoff hitter, which is, again, around 300 is where I draw the line, I like to challenge them with high inside fastballs. And the reason for that is going to tell me if they can hit one of the harder pitches. The high inside fastball, if they can't get up there and actually put the bat on the ball or put it on it effectively, then I know I can can use that as my go-to pitch to either strike them out or really aggressive early on. Now, the next bit of information that you need to be paying attention to is their PCI placement. That's going to tell you a lot. If they are actually able to put the bat on the ball and do it effectively, in this case, it's just a foul off and he's late. This information is super key because you can tell if someone's waiting on a pitch or actually just, missing the timing. In this instance, his PCI isn't up near the upstairs, so I'm going to test it again to see if he can actually catch up. So once you've got someone 0-2, and especially on the same kind of pitch, if it's a fastball or a faster pitch, you want to start throwing some burn pitches, and they've got to be breaking balls. So in this instance, I throw a changeup and a curveball. They're trying to get him chased. That doesn't happen, and we end up in a 3-2 count. Now, the pitches that he has missed, and I haven't thrown a lot of, are the fastball. So again, you want to jam them inside, especially early on with the fastball, and that's what works here. All right, so his very next batter, I get an 0-1 count, and I want to keep testing him with the high inside fastball, guys. There's really two pitches that are kind of universal that people will struggle with in this game, especially early on in the lower ranks. One is the high inside fastball, and two is the breaking ball or changeup really in the dirt. And if you find one that an opponent just can't hit, it really doesn't matter about anything else because you can mix in some other things, but if he can't hit those, you're going to be able to cruise. And this instance early on, I'm able to strike him out easily with just some high inside fastballs. All right, so this next example is exactly why you need to make sure you're paying attention to your own habits when pitching. If you keep striking somebody out or giving someone the same pitch over and over again, regardless of their skill level, eventually they will be waiting for it. Now, early on in this game, I've already had like 4 swings and misses on high inside fastballs, and I've started off the at-bat with those. In this one, trying to make sure that I change things up, I give him a breaking ball early in the at-bat, and look where his PCI goes. It's up and in, and he's extremely early because he is waiting for that high inside fastball, guys. You can get a ton of information just by looking at the stuff that is on the screen every single pitch. And I hit him with back-to-back breaking pitches, the exact opposite of what I was doing in the first 2 at-bats. He lays off on that second one, and we go right back to the high inside fastball. And even if he's waiting for that fastball, he's just seen 2 slower pitches, so he's got to think about that a little bit as well. And when you've got someone that can throw near 100, it's just a super big advantage for you. All right, so I want to talk just quickly about some of the basics and different types of pitches that you want to avoid or make sure that you don't put, in the wrong spot. In my opinion, the easiest way to remember this is changeups or curveballs. You really don't want to have them ever inside the zone, especially a changeup, because a changeup is just essentially a slow fastball. I mean, that's what it is. And if someone is having a hard time catching up to, 100, then don't give them a pitch that is slower than that and is really just in the zone. That's a big piece of feedback for me. You always want to make sure that you bury the changeup in the dirt, or it's really inside or low and outside. It's the best way to place a changeup, and it is a really effective pitch, especially because it has a drop on it. Also, sinkers and fastballs. In my opinion, you want to make sure that you have them high inside or inside, especially with a sinker because of that late movement. The other thing, though, I do want to mention is if that you have a runner on first base, putting a sinker below the zone will really help you get those ground ball outs that you can turn into double plays. A couple other things like the cutter. Again, the cutter away, if you are playing someone with a right-handed pitcher and they're a right-handed batter, you really want to play to that strength. So if you have a cutter, again, putting it on the outside part of the plate so that it cuts off of the plate, same with a slider, and vice versa if you're using a left-handed batter with a left-handed pitcher. Again, you want to make sure that you do that. It's just awkward for a lot of players, to lay off of that, especially if you're in the lower ranks, and it's a really good pitch mix. The other thing I want to mention, guys, never throw the same pitch 3 times. You can do it twice, again, because they're not expecting it. But after that, I recommend changing the speed, and I recommend changing the location, because even the most average of player, once they've seen a pitch, even if they haven't hit or put in good contact or didn't even swing at all, once they've seen it 3 times in a row, they're more than likely going to be able to put the bat on the ball. Let's talk about when to take your starting pitcher out. Let's say you're playing ranked seasons and you've gone through 5 innings and maybe you haven't allowed a hit or maybe even just 1. When they perfect something, especially the fastball or a changeup, and maybe, that means that they're sitting on it more than likely. And that's really when I switch to my bullpen. Even if it's early on, the 4th inning, it doesn't matter. If they're starting to perfect things, that means that they're really seeing that pitch well, and it just means that you can't really throw it all that often anymore. And in my opinion, it's just best to kind of switch out at that point. All right, now, once you've started to move up ranks, or maybe you're in a hard events game, and you see someone that you're going up against that has really high batting average, this is where you want to make sure you really don't leave any pitches inside the zone. Okay, you need to make sure that you're painting the corners, and especially on breaking balls, if you have a slider in your arsenal, you need to make sure that you're throwing it either well outside or below the zone, because if you let that thing in the zone, it's probably going to be a home run. It's going to happen no matter what. You're eventually going to play someone who just smashes anything that's a strike, and in that case, guys, if you give up a home run, it's probably time to just switch the pitcher and get through it. But in all honesty, you can get away with throwing inside the zone and mixing some speeds up against the lower ranks. But once you kind of get into that, 700 or 800 range, you're going to play some guys that absolutely demolish anything that isn't painted on the corner. And that's just going to come with time and practice and actually using these pitches, especially if you're using pinpoint. It's going to take a lot more time to actually be able to throw those pitches accurate all the time. But the slider and curveball and changeup specifically, you want to really make sure that you do not let in the zone, because those could be hammered out of the park pretty easily. All right, guys, so I hope these tips will help you out on the mound. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel for daily MLB content. If you want to watch me live, I stream every single day on Twitch, twitch.tv/nosleeves12. I go live at 12 p.m. Eastern time. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.